Hi, welcome to Hedberg Hypnotherapy. My name is Calvin Hedberg, a certified hypnotherapist, and today I have a presentation that is an introduction to hypnotherapy. So I'm going to go ahead and advance the slide here. And why make an introduction to hypnotherapy? Well, it's because I believe that hypnotherapy is an excellent modality that can help a lot of people, but many simply don't know about it. They don't know a lot about how it works or what a session might look like. And certainly, there's quite a few misconceptions about what hypnotherapy is, thanks to media and other things that have obscured what it is and how it can help. So, I want to talk a lot about what hypnotherapy is and a lot about what hypnotherapy isn't, give some examples of how it can help, where it can help, what a typical session might look like, maybe even get into a few exercises that you can try right along with this presentation just to kind of get an idea of what it might be. So let's go ahead and jump in. And let's start with just a simple definition. What is hypnotherapy? And I'm going to give a very broad definition here, but this is something that I think helps get the mind turning about exactly what it is. So, hypnotherapy is a technique that uses the natural state of hypnosis to help facilitate positive change within the subconscious and conscious mind. So there it's using the natural state of hypnosis or the hypnotic state, which is a natural state of mind. It's a focus state. It's a learning state. It's utilizing that state that really helps us cross the barrier into the subconscious mind and create positive change there. The other thing is it's facilitating positive change. We use a lot of suggestion, but overall, this is something that only you and your subconscious mind can really accept and take and actually utilize. So, when we talk about the conscious versus the subconscious mind, the conscious mind is when we're actively thinking about something, when we're using a lot of comparative logic, when we're trying to keep things actively in our thoughts, actively cognitively functioning with the old noodle there. But the subconscious mind is something that is happening kind of behind the scenes. It's a majority of the brain function that's happening, a lot of things that are happening without you needing to be consciously aware of them. Things like breathing when you're not aware of it, things like more trained or automatic actions that you've come to know. Like, how many times do you have to think about when you reach out to pull a door handle? How much do you actually need to think about, okay, here's how far my hand goes. Here's where I grab. Here's how much pressure I use to grab it. Here's the action or the motion I use to turn the handle. How much are you actually thinking about that, or how much is now just subconscious proficiency? So, we're going to be utilizing the hypnotic state, which helps us access more of that subconscious mind and can help kind of give you a mental tailwind to facilitate positive change without it needing to be on the forefront or being an active thinking activity. So, that's kind of what hypnotherapy is, but what can hypnotherapy help? So, let's jump ahead. Hypnotherapy sessions. What sorts of things might you have a hypnotherapy session for? And you'd be surprised to see that there is a lot of things that hypnotherapy can use because it's a natural state of mind, because it's something that is very accessible. You can use hypnotherapy for mindfulness around a lot of different things. First and foremost, relaxation. I think a lot of people think about relaxing when there's hypnosis involved, a lot of kind of getting sleepy and other things like that. But it really can be a good way to de stress, declutter the mind, and just overall relax both body and mind. Other things are things like focus. Some people say, when they're in like a flow state, when they're in kind of the zone, helping with focus or training your mind to get into that focus state a little bit more. And hypnosis really is very dependent on focus. Rumination. Some people end up just getting in their own head, thinking and overthinking again. Hypnosis can help kind of knock people out of that cycle. Anxious tendencies, things like biting nails or tapping or shaking your leg. Hypnosis can be shown to really help manage those types of things. In fact, I've seen quite a bit in other people as well as myself. Some sort of natural fidgets that people have when they're in the hypnotic state, they simply aren't happening, which is very, very nice. And you can utilize that outside of the hypnotic state as well. Things like confidence and self esteem, all right, how we view ourselves, our own self mental image, that can be very much something that we don't take care of as people. And I think hypnotherapy is very good for getting in there and helping to overturn a bunch of things that are probably not true about yourself, and just being able to see yourself in a better light. Sleep aid. Sleep aid is a very big one as well, helping people get to sleep. I mean, rumination can play into that if people are overthinking at night or have restless leg or other sorts of things that just have a lot of things that will impact their ability to just let go and fall asleep. Because similar to falling asleep, if we're trying too hard, it's going to really go against the grain. I think overall, just letting kind of sleep happen naturally, kind of getting into that space where you can clear your mind and have your body relax. Smoking or vaping cessation. So things like drugs and alcohol, those sorts of things. A lot of people have trouble quitting. It's a habit. It's something that's built up. Even with something like smoking, it's not only kind of the chemicals involved, but sometimes it can be, especially for smoking, kind of an oral fixation, wanting to have something, or have something in your mouth, or to have something that's an excuse to take a break during the day at work or other things like that. There can be a lot of secondary benefit or other things that you need to just have help overturning, help getting through that habit. Weight loss and fitness. This has been shown to be very effective. Hypnotherapy can be very effective at getting you the right mindset to continue a weight loss journey or to just feel like it's more part of a natural part of your routine. It's really good at self motivation, looking at your core motivations for why you want to lose weight, why you want to go on a fitness journey. And it can really help make those subconscious thoughts and decisions about going to the gym or keeping up with your calorie counting or keeping up with your macros, all those sorts of things. Bodily discomfort. So some people might have some chronic conditions that can kind of cause discomfort. And a lot of the time we don't realize how much of that can be controlled and how much of that we can actually manage with just our mind. So there's a lot of ways to do that. And whether it's chronic conditions like fibromyalgia or other sorts of chronic things, like I think I mentioned restless leg already, all those things can be really helped and mitigated through that. And gastrointestinal relief, sometimes that can be stress related. Sometimes that can also be just our own rumination or thinking or focusing on the gastrointestinal, response and just overall making it worse by having our mind just fixated on it. But this isn't all. There's even more going on here. Processing sensitizing events. Past events can be something we hold on to, something that we replay in our mind, something that can really affect our current mood. And you can use hypnotherapy to go back and what's called regression, to go back and kind of look through, walk through, and play through past events and help to try to transform how they kind of present or how they're thought about in your mind. Processing complex emotion. Sometimes we don't really know where an emotion is coming from, what it's actually doing, where it's stemming from. Sometimes it helps to deep dive and figure out, okay, what is this emotion? What am I feeling? What's the cause of it? And hypnotherapy can really help explore the depths of our minds and get us a lot of insight on that. Handling internal conflict. Sometimes we have disagreements in our own head, in our own mind. Sometimes it helps to slow down, get out of the way of our critical thinking, and just feel and let emotions, let different decisions, let sometimes even different kind of personas in our own mind just kind of have a discussion. And we'll get more into that later with a thing called parts therapy, or parts facilitation. Habit formation. So this is kind of the same thing. If you have a bad habit you want to kick, like smoking, that's very helpful. But maybe there's a healthier habit or like another habit or a different sorts of routine that you want to get into. Hypnotherapy is definitely beneficial and helpful for that because it can help you build a habit quicker than you could alone. It really helps kind of train and align that subconscious mind to a new goal that you want to have. Habit transformation. Maybe you want to change something about a current habit you already have. Goal setting. It's the same way. Trying to set a goal and trying to get your subconscious mind to say, okay, here are the steps. Here's how I'm going to help actually achieve that. And all the things that kind of don't need to be active decision making, or just something that you can feel like happens a little bit more naturally because you don't have to put as much of your conscious mind towards it at all hours of the day. Relationships, sometimes getting insight on relationships, again, processing complex emotions are the things that might help you navigate a relationship, how to, kind of go about communication or why is this happening or what can I do differently to change the way that I interact with my partner. Maybe you're stuck in a cycle of doing something that makes your partner, not so happy and you want to help fix or transform or change that. Boosting creativity. A lot of what happens in the hypnotic state, and there have been MRI scans to kind of show that different parts of the brain are lighting up when you're in the hypnotic state. That can really help too with creative endeavors. In fact, I know personally when I go into hypnosis and actually practice hypnosis during the day, I end up having a lot of really vivid dreams later on. I think the parts of the brain that are essentially lighting up and being a little bit more active when we're in this natural hypnotic state are very similar to the ones that are lit up when we're doing REM sleep, which is when we experience dreams. So a lot of creativity, being able to get a little bit more acquainted with some of the modalities like touch and visualization, these kinesthetic, auditory, and visual aspects that we can have and see and experience in our mind. It can really help with a lot of art, writing, everything else in that way. You can do dream exploration or mindscape exploration. So sometimes if you had a dream and you're either having a little bit of those details kind of fuzzied, or you kind of wondering kind of what it means, or you want to look further into what was that dream all about, you can explore dreams similar to regressing and doing regression back to a sensitizing event or a past event. You can do so by trying to get into that dream and look further into it, experience it maybe again for a second time within the hypnotic state to get a little more better grasp on it. Then there's mindscape exploration. Sometimes people have come up with the concept of a mind garden. What do I see in my mind? What sort of things are in my mind that I would rather kind of change or kind of weed out of my mind, or other things that, goals or habits or things that I want to plant in my mind and tend to and help grow. So mind gardens or mindscapes, just trying to figure out and become more acquainted with yourself, and really just kind of utilizing the power of like self-hypnosis, self-suggestion, self-affirmation to essentially create a better. This goes all the way back to confidence and self-esteem, how you view yourself, how you view your own mind, how you take care of yourself, not only your body but your thoughts and the way your mind processes everything that's happening. So as you can see, there's a very, very wide breadth of hypnotherapy sessions, and this doesn't even cover all of it. Obviously there are more. One of the things that I've helped as well is things like forensic hypnosis, which is basically trying to remember past events or details. I've also helped with test taking, kind of getting nervous about test taking and other things like that. So there's even more that aren't listed on here, and hopefully I can get to a few more anecdotes. But let's continue on. Now that we have a few examples of things that you can help with hypnosis, let's go ahead and look at some more detailed breakdowns of what is hypnotherapy. So, hypnotherapy is, and what hypnotherapy is not. So, hypnotherapy is first, it uses the natural hypnotic state. And we'll get more into that as well, but just know that the hypnotic state is a focused state, it's a learning state, it's kind of an altered state of mind, but it's completely natural. It's something that happens where we are kind of really zoned in, we're really absorbed in something, and it usually helps activate different parts of the brain and really helps us accept suggestion. And of course, when we talk about suggestion and accepting suggestion, suggestion is just giving sorts of things, ideas, and feeding that directly to the subconscious mind. Luckily, the subconscious mind is very good at rejecting suggestion. It doesn't like, and especially suggestion that goes against that person's beliefs, or especially that person's kind of own wants and desires. So it usually helps that if people are aligned, hypnotherapy is very good with that. So we'll get more into that with the hypnotherapy is not, but hypnotherapy is also used to affect positive change, right? Hypnotherapy, especially with a professional, is going to be utilizing that to your own benefit, right? You finding healthy ways to create new habits, or to help break old habits, or to help process things that are past events or emotions. We're trying to get positive change, right? We're doing this because we're here to help you because you've come to us for a reason, right? You want to change something, you want to help something else improve. So we're going to be focusing on creating lasting positive change with hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is collaborative and informed. Okay, this is very important, right? Collaborative, we're working together. This isn't something I'm doing to you, okay? This is something that you and I are working together. I'm going to be guiding you. I'm going to be walking you through the hypnotic state, delivering suggestions, but ultimately this is collaborative. It will very much start with a large section of a session being an intake where we talk and get context around your issue, where you are now, where you would like to be. So that by the time we do get you into the hypnotic state, we're working on everything that you've already told us you want, that you desire. As long as we're working together, it's going to work out much, much better. I don't want to try to insert anything that I think you should do. It's all going to be coming from you. It's going to be coming from you, your discussion, your wants, your desires, and I'm going to be helping and facilitating that. And it's also collaborative because everything that's going to happen is going to be within your own mind. Your own subconscious mind is responsible for taking and accepting suggestion and for actually allowing these sorts of hypnotherapies to take hold. Nothing happens without you or your say-so, which also leads into that informed piece, right? We're going to make sure that we cover all the different things at a session. There'll even be time for you to ask me any sorts of questions, misconceptions, any sorts of worries you have about the hypnotic state. And of course, there will always be consent and clear cut when hypnotherapy or hypnotherapy techniques are being used. Before we end up getting you into the hypnotic state, there will be a complete kind of breakdown and acknowledgement that, hey, this is where the hypnotherapy starts. So it's very much informed. And that's where I think I have been getting a few times where I've been asked, hey, can you help my husband quit smoking? Or, hey, can you help my, you know, my teenager who's just won't listen to me finally be good and listen, and I'm sitting here going, every time I get one of these calls, one of these one of these consultations, I just go, well, do they want to do the hypnotherapy? Are they willing to do the therapy? Oh no, he's grumpy and stubborn. He won't give up cigarettes. And oh no, they would never do that. But I can bring them. I'm their legal guardian. I can drag them to your office and get them to sit down for you. And I go, okay, nothing is going to happen. They're not gonna take the suggestion if they don't want to change. If this isn't informed consent, right? They're not. It's not going to work. And I always have to turn people away and say, hey, I'm here to work with clients. I'm here to work with people who want to change. I'm here to work with people who can actually consent and be collaborative with me. If somebody's going to be fighting the whole thing, it's not going to work, first of all, and it's not worth trying to force anybody into change. So going along, it is predicated on active participation. So this is another thing that a lot of people kind of get confused with hypnotherapy. They think, oh, well, you're going to swing a pocket watch. I'm going to pass out for 45 minutes and then I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be cured. And it's not like that. It does take active participation. Again, I'm going to be giving suggestions and guiding you, but it's up to you to follow said suggestions. It's up to you to actually work with me actively and kind of get us all to that place. So it will take some active participation. Eventually, and the good thing with hypnosis and hypnotherapy is at first you're following suggestion very consciously, but as you get deeper into the hypnotic state, things flow a little bit easier, where you're kind of accepting suggestion, especially your own words, your own desires, your own goals, a lot more automatically. And that's kind of the beauty of hypnotherapy. It works with the subconscious mind. So there will be some active participation. There needs to be informed consent. But after that, hypnotherapy can be very easy, very relaxing, and very good to kind of utilize even on a daily basis using self-hypnosis techniques to help further your goals and get you and keep you on track. So that's what hypnotherapy is. But let's look at what hypnotherapy is not. We've covered a little bit of this already. But on the contrary side, hypnotherapy is not mind control. Again, I can't swing a watch, put a spiral on a screen, or do anything else. This isn't The Incredibles 2, right? I can't just like put a spiral on a screen and then take control of your mind right away. It's not how that works. It's definitely not in any way, shape, or form what hypnotherapy is. It's not mind control. I can't get you to think, say, or do anything that you wouldn't agree with, because at the end of the day, I give suggestion. It's up to you to take it. If you reject suggestion, if I say something that goes against what you want, if I say something that was outside of our original plan or outline, and especially if I say something or do something that makes you go against or try to go against your moral or ethical code, your mind is going to wake up from hypnosis. It's going to reject that suggestion. It's going to absolutely just tell me to take a hike. So it is not mind control. Also, it's not a cure-all, right? I think there will be people who will try to overhype any therapy. They'll say, oh, it can cure everything. It'll cure those spots on your arms and legs. It'll cure your insomnia. It'll cure this. It'll cure that. Hypnotherapy is not a cure-all. In fact, you'll find oftentimes that it is used or utilized in conjunction with other cognitive behavioral therapies. Oftentimes, it is used as a supplement to other, medically prescribed treatments or therapies. It's not a cure-all, but it is definitely very effective for what it does and for what it can help. Again, things like overthinking and rumination, things like getting out of a habit, quitting smoking, getting more serious about weight loss, helping to kind of curb some of your anxious tendencies or kind of nervousness around certain aspects, right? It's something that can help train your mind, help train the way you see yourself, train the way how you think, and overall just kind of give you a lot of subconscious boosts to your day. But it is not a cure-all, right? It's not going to be something that can cure other sorts of diseases or other things that would seriously require other types of medical intervention. So I like to mention that as well. I'm not going to try to oversell hypnotherapy. It is very useful, very versatile, but it's not for everything. And it's certainly not a truth serum, right? I can't get you to say anything that you wouldn't want to say. I can definitely get you to open up a little bit more. I think in the subconscious state, right, or in the hypnotic state, the subconscious mind is much more in touch with emotion. Is not going to be as filtered, I'd say, because a lot of the time when we're trying to talk about something that might be kind of a tricky topic or something where we might try to shield the truth, our critical mind, right, our conscious mind might say, oh, well, I can't say it like this because it would hurt somebody's feelings. Or like, I can't say it like this because I don't know if that's the right way it actually is. Do I want to try to explain this in a way that doesn't reflect poorly on me? Like you're doing mental gymnastics a lot of the time with your feelings and expressing your feelings when you have to consciously think about it. When you're kind of in the hypnotic state and you're asked about how you feel about something, or you're asked about what emotion is coming to the surface right away, when you're in the hypnotic state, you might not have to think as much about how to portray the words or the feeling or how to filter it. It might just come out a little bit more naturally. It might flow a little bit more naturally, but certainly I can't get you to say any information that you wouldn't want to divulge. If you want to keep secrets, you certainly can. If there's something you don't want to say, you certainly can. Again, suggestion. I give suggestion. It's up to you to take it. So it's not a truth serum, and I certainly can't get anybody to admit anything that they wouldn't already. Um, and it's certainly not a stage show, right? It's funny that I have to say this one, but it is honestly something I still get asked on whether or not I can make somebody cluck like a chicken or whether or not I can get them to do something goofy or embarrassing. It's not going to be like that, especially at a professional hypnotherapy session, right? Not a truth serum. I'm not going to try to get you to admit your deepest, darkest secret or try to get you to admit that you stole, old man Jenkins's lawnmower way back in the day. Like I'm not going to, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I'm not certainly not going to do that, right? This is not something that is used for spectacle. This is used to affect positive change in a professional controlled environment. So, and it's all built on trust, right? We're going to discuss early on in a session what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what sorts of changes you want to make, what things you want to achieve, and we're going to stay on that track. And that's where that trust comes in, right? Where you and I talk to each other like people, and then we figure out a plan and we do it together. So I like to really go about that and say this is not a stage show. Um, we'll save that. There certainly can be, there is an application for entertainment and hypnosis, and the things you see at stage shows, I will say, are real. They're very real. There's a certain percentage of the population that is extremely receptive to hypnosis right away and are okay being in a stage environment or like a public environment and are okay kind of going along and being humored and kind of overall being a spectacle. Some people enjoy that. And so in stage shows, they will utilize sweeping suggestions to the crowd in order to kind of find the people who are really receptive right away, bring them up, and then they can really kind of give fun, goofy suggestions to have people go along. So, but for a majority, and I'm talking over 95% of people, they will not be as receptive to hypnosis right away. They might need a more private or secure environment. They might need a little bit more trust with the person they're working with. They might not be okay in crowds or making a fool of themselves in front of people. So for a majority of people, yes, they look at a stage show and go, that has to be staged. Like that has to be fake. That could never be me. And yeah, probably couldn't. Honestly, probably wouldn't be you. If you don't find yourself actually going into hypnotic trance and finding yourself up on stage, yeah, you probably need a different environment. But I promise you that just about anybody can be hypnotized. It's just what other things kind of need to go along with it. So, what is the hypnotic state? I've been talking a lot about it, but let's actually look at kind of breaking it down and looking at it a little bit more in depth. So, first and foremost, it is a natural state. Hypnosis is an altered state of mind, but it's natural. In fact, we find ourselves in hypnosis quite often. I mean, you've probably even heard the phrase highway hypnosis. Sometimes we find ourselves zoning out while we're driving and just relying on a lot of our subconscious proficiency at driving. And then, like 30 seconds later, we realize, hey, I wasn't paying attention to anything I was doing right there. I was just kind of on autopilot. So that could be an part of a hypnotic state or like a focused or absorbed state of mind. Um, Other times we might find ourselves, usually we go into a hypnotic state or a trance-like state at least twice a day. Once when we're waking up from sleep and once sometime before we go to sleep. we can slip into a hypnotic state. Other times might be when you're in like a just a really focused or flow state where you get really, really absorbed in something like a good book or a movie or playing a video game. Sometimes we enter a hypnotic state that way too. So it's very natural. It's something that happens. It's something that's we're built in with. It's something that comes, free with your human brain. It's selective attention, right? Directed thought and attention. It's selective thinking. So this is exactly where you might see somebody have you might see, a hypnotist swing a pocket watch, right? They're trying to direct your attention to that. They're trying to get you to start shutting out other things, other sorts of visual stimuli, other sorts of things that you don't need to pay attention to, and get you to focus more on the words being said, getting you to focus more inward, right? You're trying to focus more inward on your thoughts, on your mind, how you're thinking. And then once you're in that state, you can have your thoughts directed a little bit more. And that's where the suggestion comes in. So you're trying to get somebody to direct their thought. I know me personally, right? One example I can give you about directed thinking or directed thought is that if they're telling you to focus on your breath, what are you not focusing on? Well, you're not focusing on where your body's in the chair. You're not focusing about what you ate for breakfast this morning. You're not focusing about the temperature of the room, right? You're focused on your breathing, the rise and fall of your chest. You're focused on how much deeper it's getting. All those sorts of things are happening. And the more you can get your attention focused on specific things versus all the multitudes of other sorts of stimuli and data that your senses, your five senses are picking up on, that really helps you to get into that focused state. So what's happening? So it uses both the conscious and subconscious mind. When you're in the hypnotic state, a lot of people think you're going to forget the whole thing, like it's a completely thing, like you flip a switch and you're out and then you're back up and you're not going to remember anything. Hypnosis and the hypnotic state, it uses both your conscious and subconscious mind. They're both present during the process. So you will be aware and you will be conscious while in this state. So you'll be aware, but things will be changed. You probably won't care as much about where your body is. You might not care as much, if you're slouched or slumped in the seat. You might not be caring as much about, what's going to be happening after you leave the session or what happened before. You're going to be very present, very grounded, very aware, and very internally focused. So, but just people always ask, am I going to forget this? Am I going to, is there just going to be this profound moment where I like feel like I'm having an out of body experience and I have no control over my body? It's like, no, you'll be there. And if a suggestion is given, if something is said that you don't agree with, you can always reject that suggestion. You can always wake yourself up from trance. You're not stuck. It's not something that you're going to not be able to like, oh, I can't fight it, I'm in trance. No, you can certainly wake up. You can certainly move. You can certainly talk too. A lot of people don't realize that. They think they're not going to be able to talk. It's very much you're aware, you're present, you're there. Things are just kind of shifted and altered. Your body might feel different. Your normal ways of thinking or processing, passing thought might be different. So I like to really kind of get into that. Last but not least, it is a learning state. When you're in this state, you're absorbed, you're focused, you're kind of having that selective thinking, that selective attention. And that's where you can be a little bit more suggestible or open to new ideas. And this is exactly what I like to say. It's very much a learning state. If you've always done something one way, right? Maybe you are trying to kick a habit. Like maybe, oh my goodness, I've drank way too many energy drinks. I need to figure out a way to stop drinking so many energy drinks. It's just not healthy. All right, cool. What are we going to do about that? Well, let's see. Whenever I am playing video games, I have an energy drink. That is a learned behavior. That is something that is there, that is always there, that you're like, okay, if I'm going to go game with my friends, I need to have an energy drink. Or what else do you do? Maybe you say, oh, well, after I eat food, after I eat lunch, I always get tired. So what do? I grab an energy drink. And that's just how it is. That's a learned behavior. When you're in this state, we can start challenging those things that are almost kind of, the rut of the wagon wheel on the path, or the thing that you've been doing over and over again, the thing that you've developed or built up as a habit. We can go, all right, well, if energy drinks are too much, maybe it's too much caffeine or too much sugar. What can we do? Well, let's start giving the idea that maybe you can substitute out that after lunch drink with something else. Maybe you could start with thinking about tea or coffee, or trying to come up with a different way or a different substitute that you want to move towards as something different. Or maybe when you're gaming, you can start challenging the idea that you need an energy drink to game. or that it's something that needs to happen automatically, right? Challenging that subconscious behavior of reaching for the fridge or reaching for the can that you're thinking you need, right? Each time you do that. So entering that learning state, openness to new ideas, trying to create new neural pathways, new different ways of thinking, new different ways of handling habits and situations. So overall, this is what the hypnotic state is. It's a natural state. It uses selective attention and focus. The conscious and subconscious mind are both present, and very much more leaning towards the subconscious mind kind of picking up on suggestion. And that's where that learning state comes along. It's very much a learning state, something that we can utilize to help change the way we think. All right. Here, and I've been talking a lot about suggestion. Here's an example suggestion and how it might work with hypnotherapy. So let's talk about that. You are getting more confident each time you go to the gym. That's an example of a suggestion that might be given during a hypnotherapy session. If your goal was to go on a fitness journey, to do more time at the gym, to lift, to work out, you might have this type of suggestion given. You are getting more confident each time you go to the gym. Now, if I were just to tell you this and you're at the start of your fitness journey, what might you think? Well, out of hypnosis, your conscious mind and your critical filter are there, and you're going to start examining it critically. You're going to look at it and go, all right, what are some past factors? And, basically, sometimes they'll be finding a way where how can I disprove this statement? How can I disprove this suggestion? The critical mind, the conscious mind will look for those sorts of things first. So, and likely reject the notion. So, well, we've traditionally felt very self-conscious and are actually very nervous about going to the gym. I'm not confident each time I go to the gym. I feel like everyone's watching me at the gym. I'm really nervous at the gym. Yeah, I'm nervous at the gym. No, I'm not getting more confident. No, that's not happening. So that might be happening with the conscious mind, or when they look at it very critically. When you're in hypnosis, we're basically suspending a lot of that critical factor, that critical filtering of thoughts and ideas coming in. We're suspending that a little bit more, or bypassing it a little bit more, letting the subconscious mind look and examine this idea, this suggestion, uncritically. So in this case, the uncritical reception of the subconscious mind might accept this suggestion and say, you know what? I'm actually showing up at the gym. I'm getting more and more used to showing up there after work. And so I guess I am really getting more confident. I have been improving. I have actually been going to the gym a little bit more. And you know what? Yeah, I would like to feel more confident. I am feeling more confident. They might start building off of that idea, taking that suggestion. And the more suggestions we give around, hey, you're getting more confident at the gym, you're going more often, you're actually seeing results, you're enjoying your results, you're actually paying more attention to the times that people mention, hey, you're looking good, or hey, I noticed you've been working out. Maybe visualizing or going into the future and thinking about, oh my gosh, I can't wait until somebody notices. These types of suggestions, right? If you're looking at it out of hypnosis, they're going to look at it critically and try to disprove it more often than not. In hypnosis, they're more open to the idea and more open to accepting said suggestion. All right. So let's break down what happens during a session. So let's say you've seen all of this so far. You go, oh, wow, yeah, I could really use help with X, Y, or Z. Or, hey, I have this issue that I think hypnosis so far, from what I've been hearing, hypnotherapy sounds like a great idea. And you decide to book a session. What does a typical session look like? I think this is important to break down because there can be a lot of nervousness around booking a session if you don't know what's going to happen, right? I think there's even nervousness around like going to the dentist because you have no idea what's going to pop up, or am I going to need to get that painful procedure done, or there can be some uncertainty there, and uncertainty is always something that can generate fear or nervousness or a hesitancy to actually reach out to help yourself. And so let's break down, what does a session look like, because I feel like that's going to help a lot. First and foremost, a consultation. All right, this is even before a session happens. This is pre-session. This is a consultation. It's a short discussion. And in this case, with Hedberg Hypnotherapy, with me, you'll be calling directly to me, right? You'll be calling me. I will be the one to answer. I'll be the one to talk to you about what is happening, and if hypnotherapy is right based on your described issue or your context. So it's a short discussion to see if hypnotherapy is right for you, because I've already given an example of times where people are calling on behalf of a partner or a rowdy teenager and saying, hey, can you help them? And oftentimes in those cases, I have to say no, I don't think I can help you. Or if somebody comes with something that I just don't believe is possible, or that hypnotherapy is not right for, I will be perfectly honest with you and tell you if it's right or not. But for majority of things that people are calling for, usually they've done a little bit of research already. and they kind of know, hey, I think this is right. And I'll be kind of that final check-in just to kind of ask the relevant questions according to my training, and just kind of note more on whether or not this is something that's going to be effective. So once we determine, yep, hypnotherapy can definitely help with your issue, we'll create an outline and a plan for that specific issue. I'll even be honest about, hey, I think we can definitely create positive and effective change in just a single session. Or, hey, I think this is an issue that will take quite a few sessions, maybe 2, 3, or even 4 sessions for us to really dig deep into and start to really create change. I think there are some studies that kind of show that the more you practice hypnosis, the better you are at going into that state, the more you are better at receiving and accepting suggestion. But good news is there is ways to practice self-hypnosis, and we'll certainly give you those tools at the session for you to continue this work on your own, or to at least kind of know what to expect for follow-up sessions. But we'll create an outline and a plan for your specific issue, and then we'll set up a time, we'll set up a date, and we'll get into the actual session. And sessions are around 2 hours typically. That is my kind of standard session. It is a 2-hour session. And why do I book so much time? Well, let's break it down. First and foremost, an intake, right? When we're first there, let's have a conversation, right? We sit down. We're not going to jump right into, all right, I'm hypnotizing you now. It's, hi, welcome. How was your day? How's it been? How are you feeling? How would you like to use your time? Um, it starts out as a conversation. We're going to start getting into it, make sure our conversation's flowing naturally, that we're understanding each other, that we're on the same wavelength. And we're going to discuss the matters to be worked on in hypnosis, right? This is where we gather all of the emotions, the beliefs, the context around your issue and how it currently affects your life, because that is also very important. We want to know how it's affecting you and how we can get you to a place where your life is improved, where this issue is improved. And then we'll determine your goals and how you'd like to be once the work is complete. And this intake usually takes around 45 minutes of the session. It really depends how in depth the issue is, how many different parts of the context we're going to cover. But overall, I find that it's really helpful to talk and get a lot of the context around it squared away before we even get to any of the hypnosis. So that is a majority of the session. Honestly, a majority of the session will be that intake piece. What's going to happen next? Well, now once the intake piece is actually done, we're going to move to the actual hypnosis. And before we get to hypnosis, I will give you a complete chance to ask any questions about any things that are uncertain, any concerns, any unknowns that you want to clarify. We'll also kind of go through a few receptivity exercises, some things that'll be helpful for you to kind of just get a sense of what accepting suggestion feels like, or what sorts of things you might do for selective attention. Just kind of get the imagination excited about what the mind is capable of. And then once we get all that squared away, once I let you know that hypnosis is the hypnotic techniques are going to start, we start and we get you into the hypnotic state using what's called an induction. So an induction is just inducing the hypnotic state, then we deepen the state, and then we start giving the suggestions. So we enter the hypnotic state to complete the work from what we discussed in the intake. And this is where the intake also helps create us an outline about what we are going to do, what sorts of words, what sorts of suggestions, what sorts of ideas we're going to help kind of give to your subconscious mind. So we establish that direct communication with the subconscious mind, and then we start delivering those suggestions and those affirmations that we had discussed earlier. And this is where we can then utilize the powerful hypnotic state to break through any unwanted patterns and behaviors and create new, more desired ones. And then after you kind of have received all of those suggestions in hypnosis, once we've gone through the actual hypnotherapy techniques, we bring you back up out of the hypnotic state, and we always do a post-talk. And the post-talk is going to be following up about what happened in the hypnotic state, what sort of things came up. It also gives us some time for future planning. So we discuss any sort of shifts or changes that occurred, any sort of things you noticed. If it's your first session, sometimes we just ask what it was like, what it felt like, what sorts of sensations, both body and mind, you experienced. And then, of course, we create plans for future work to be done in sessions. So this is kind of like if we need to do a follow-up, if we figured out like, hey, we've broken some new ground, I think this will be good to work on in a separate session. Or if you feel like you are in a good spot to then practice independently with self-hypnosis. And again, this is kind of some techniques give you additional types of hypnosis or things that you can work on independently, similar to like independent meditation or independent kind of mindful practices. We can give you different ways of practicing self-hypnosis to further your journey outside of a professional session. So that's what it is, consultation. And then once you get here, a majority of it is the intake outside of the hypnotic state. Then we'll enter into the hypnotic state. And then afterward, we will do our post-talk to talk about what happened and what we can do in a future session. All right, so now that we've talked in depth about what is hypnosis, what it's not, what it can help with, what a session looks like, let's look at some other, kind of clearing up a few other uncertainties. So let's look at the tools of the trade, right? Things that are actually going to be used or things that are going to be done to kind of help with the hypnotic state or to get you into the hypnotic state, things that we use for inductions. And if you've ever seen the now infamous movie Get Out by I think Jordan Peele, it is a horror movie, and there is a hypnotherapist who uses a teacup. This is not in any way, shape, or form an accurate representation of hypnotherapy. This is what I mentioned before at the beginning with there's some misconceptions. I think media really has misconstrued what hypnotherapy is. And in this specific movie, this hypnotherapist is very much shown in an extremely malicious light and is basically using hypnosis as a way to like knock somebody out or sedate somebody against their will. And this is definitely not something that happens. That's not a real portrayal of how it would work in reality. But it's also not really any of the tools of the trade that we use. I think overall, when people think of that, there's a lot of other sorts of ways people imagine that a hypnotherapist might do or utilize to get somebody into the hypnotic state. But what if I told you that the only tool that you need is your mind? A lot of what hypnotherapy is going to feel conversational. It's going to feel almost like a discussion. It's going to feel a little bit more like I am just kind of giving you gentle directions and suggestions and guidance. And eventually you're going to find yourself into a very focused state, usually with eyes closed, and just kind of walking through all the words and suggestions and things that I am saying to you. Your mind is going to be powering. It's going to be the engine. It's going to be the actual thing that affects change. Your mind is going to be listening, following the suggestions, and working through everything. So overall, if it came down to it, all I would ever need, and usually all that I ever really end up using, is my voice. I talk to you. I give you those suggestions. I give you the language. I give you the words, and then your mind follows. And that's as simple as it needs to be. But there are a couple other things that you can utilize to kind of help, again, keep that focused attention and to help kind of induce that hypnotic state. You might have things like visual, like a pocket watch. And yes, that is an example of a visual focus. It can be just a static pocket watch that you have and then have somebody focus on with their eyes. Other times you might see something used like a light, like a pen light, just to kind of look at the light or keep your eyes focused on that. You might have a crystal pendant, or sometimes in hypnosis media, they also show like a like a coin or other things on a string, any sorts of visual things. And all that is meant to do is just get you to, again, get that selective focus, that selective attention. And that way, if you're shutting everything else out, but that thing you're told to look at or stare at, it gets easier to have the words and the suggestions being given get taken uncritically. So audio, sometimes you might have relaxing music. Other times you might have what's known as binaural tones, which can be things that are like one tone played in one ear, another played in the other, and those two tones combined create a third tone that can be very stimulating for the mind or very focusing for the mind. It kind of helps shut out a lot of other sounds or disturbances or things that would otherwise kind of pull your attention away from what was being said. So that's kind of an example of an audio. And then there's some things that are audiovisual. In this case, I mentioned metronomes, or I think I showed a picture of a metronome at the beginning on the first slide. Metronomes both play a sound and also have a visual aspect of something moving. It can be very, very easy for somebody to have their attention focused on that. And I like to use metronomes overall just for like rhythm and like creating a constant in the background that eventually falls away when you start to listen and get into the hypnotic state. So these are all sorts of things that can be used, but overall the mind is really all you need. All right. And you might be asking, can I be hypnotized? And as I mentioned before, there are a select few in the population who just have all the right things going on in their brain, usually very imaginative, usually very, already kind of some people who kind of get lost in their own imaginations, their own like daydreams, other things like that, who are extremely receptive to hypnosis right away. But a majority of us might need a little bit extra help, but I guarantee you that if you can understand what I'm saying right now, if there's no language barrier right? If you can understand what I'm saying, if you can understand the words, the suggestions, the language that I'm saying to you, then the answer is very likely yes, you can be hypnotized. There is a small percentage of population who can't be hypnotized, and the reason for that is mostly things that are having to do with neurodivergence, right? And there's things like ADHD that are absolutely not a blocker, right? People with ADHD usually have hyperfocus or hyperfixation. They might take different techniques or different types of hypnotic inductions to really get their focused attention. But I found that ADHD and people with ADHD can be some of the best hypnotic subjects, or basically people for hypnotherapy that you'll ever find. But things like people who just like cognitively can't understand what you're saying or can't wrap their head around it. Like if somebody had kind of neurodivergence to the point of taking things too literally, where they might second guess or question what you meant by that, right? Like I think I've had one person I've worked with who I was unable to get into the hypnotic state because I would say something like, when I count down from three all the way down to one, I want you to close your eyes, and then their mind would go, is it on one, after one? I don't know how to follow that. I don't know what you mean. Like they would need clarification on basically everything I said. If I were trying to tell them, yeah, and then you're going to breathe a little bit deeper, they'd be like, well, how deeply? How am I doing it right? Am I doing this right? Their mind was second guessing and not able to interpret what I was saying. They were very literal, and I found that to be something that it was difficult. Eventually, we were able to kind of use more physical or bodily sensations to help them kind of focus and turn inward. But things like that might be a blocker, something where people legitimately cannot understand you or connect with the suggestion of the words that you're saying. But other than that, things like even like ADHD is not an issue. Some people go, hey, I have aphantasia. I can't actually visualize things in my mind. And I go, that's fine. That's me too. Actually, I have partial aphantasia myself. And what do? You utilize other types of modalities. Things like auditory. You can describe how something sounds, and they don't have to see it. They can think about it, be like, hey, can you imagine right now, for those who live in a little bit more of a wintry place, could you imagine what it would be like if you were to have boots on and just crunch into snow? Just hear the clean crunch of fresh snow under your boot. And yeah, they could think about that. They wouldn't have to see it. They could think through it. For somebody who's maybe in a warmer climate, could you imagine ocean waves crashing down on the sand? I can guarantee people who have heard it could probably reproduce that thought, or at least imagine what it would sound like. Other times you might use kinesthetics through touch. Imagine what it would be like if I had a space heater in front of you and you were just feeling that warm heat radiating on your face and radiating on your body. You don't have to use visualization. Visualization can be very helpful to say like, hey, visualize and see this specific thing or this scene, or imagine you're walking through a nice forest. But you don't have to use visualization. And if you are aphantasic, that's not a problem. Um, so yeah, chances are, more often than not, you can be hypnotized, and it's much, much easier than people like to give credit for. So let's go ahead and give just a quick example about ways that we can give selective attention. So this is what I like to call the 2-minute breathing exercise. And the 2-minute breathing exercise is something that you can try right now, that we can do. And if you want to get to more information, you can certainly skip past this part of the presentation. But I think this is a fun way just to kind of slow down and give yourself an idea of what it feels like to get more into a hypnotic state. So I will clarify, this is not hypnosis. This is a breathing technique, but it kind of shows you what selective attention is all about. And if you're curious about this background photo here, it's very serene. This is actually in Canada. I think this is British Columbia. I think it's British Columbia. This is right off. It's a hiking trail right off of Lake Moraine. So this isn't Lake Moraine. This is a different lake that we had to hike to. But it's just an absolutely beautiful, serene area with a lot of mountain peaks, clouds, and it's just a very nice place where the air was super clean. It was easy to breathe. So hopefully it's kind of a good scene. It'll show you a little bit of a fun scene that you can kind of just imagine you're there while you're breathing. But the 2-minute breathing exercise, what we're going to do is we're just going to spend 2 minutes, and all we're going to do is focus on our breathing. That's all we're going to do. We're going to focus on our breathing. When I tell you to start, you're basically just going to focus on your breathing. If it helps to close your eyes, you can. If it helps to put a hand on your chest so you can feel the rise and fall, that's fine as well. But go ahead and try that. Just maybe put a hand on your chest, maybe just have your eyes closed down. And all we're going to do now is just focus on breathing. Put all your focus on breathing. Just find that you can just breathe in and maybe feel the rise of your chest. And then breathe out and just feel it fall. And then take more nice deep breaths, all in your own rhythm. You don't need to follow my rhythm. You can follow your own. And just shut out any other thoughts, any other sounds. Just let everything else that isn't breathing, that isn't focusing on breathing, just fall to the wayside for now. Just breathe gently in and out. And focus on what that feels like. Focus on the air going in and out. Focus on the pace, the depth, the feeling. Just focus on breathing. What you might find is that things are just going to get nice and slow. Nice and focused. Just focus on the breathing. And as you focus on the breathing and nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and just stop talking for a moment and just be with your breathing. Just keep those eyes closed. Keep breathing at your own pace. And focus on nothing but the rise and fall. And it might not be exactly 2 minutes, but in just a moment, you can just come back a little bit from focusing on breathing and just go ahead and open your eyes whenever you're ready. And just notice right now, before all the other thoughts and things come flooding back in, just notice the things that have shifted and changed, how you weren't focused on anything else that was going on around you. You were just focusing on your breathing. You were just focusing on the rise and fall. You're just focusing on the pacing and the depth of your breath. Some people, when they have this exercise, they might realize that there were some changes or shifts in their body. Maybe they stopped thinking about where their hands or feet were. Maybe they might have realized that they didn't really have a passing thought for a while. Or maybe they kind of realized that things that they would normally be thinking about or would normally be running through their head just simply weren't. And again, I think this is a quick exercise that you can try at any time, that you can do at any time. Just take a moment, take a few minutes just to just focus on breathing, just to go through that. And overall, it's just a good way to kind of exemplify and show what is selective attention and how does that sort of selective attention then lead into what would be hypnosis, where we get that selective attention and then we start getting more and more of that suggestion. And then we start getting you to kind of follow the suggestion and think about a lot of what's being said or provided less critically. So again, that's not hypnosis, but it's a very good way to exemplify that selective attention. And selective attention is a major part of hypnosis. Another fun little exercise that we're going to do here is called the lemon exercise. And again, I was mentioning before, a lot of people are like, well, I'm aphantasic. How can I be hypnotized? It's like, well, let's talk about that. So lemon exercise is something that's very easy. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe something. And I just want you to close your eyes, and I want you just to experience it. And I'm not going to say anything else. I want you, if you want to play along, and again, you can skip past if you'd like. But if you want to play along, all you got to do is close your eyes and listen to this description and just let me know how you feel. So just go ahead and close the eyes. And what I want you to imagine right now, I want you to imagine that I just walked into the room with a yellow, ripe, fragrant lemon. And I'm holding the lemon just in my hand. I'm holding the lemon in my hand. And then you can imagine that as I walk into the room, maybe you're set down at a table, or maybe you're sat up at a kitchen counter, somewhere where you just imagine that I walked into the room with that lemon, and I'm now going to take that lemon, and I'm going to just take a wedge out of that lemon. Imagine me taking a wedge out of that lemon, and maybe the scent of lemon zest just goes all the way into the air, just wafting through the air. Maybe even imagining what it would be like to have a few little bits of that lemon zest spray out from that wedge. And I want you to imagine that I then hand you the wedge of lemon. And from there, you take the ledge of lemon, the wedge of the lemon in your hand, and you can imagine what it'd be like then to just squeeze that wedge of lemon and just have lemon juice come out. And maybe you could have that lemon juice just begin to trickle over your lips. Maybe you could taste it. Maybe you could just taste the acidity, the sourness. Maybe you could just let it run along your tongue. Let it cover all the different taste buds. Let it just wash down your throat. And after you're done with that lemon, you can then just go ahead and reopen your eyes. And at this point in time, I would ask you what sort of things you experienced. What was that like? How did that feel? What sort of things came up when I described that lemon and that wedge and just squeezing that lemon juice? And this is where it can be very fun because I have done this so many times, and everyone has different things they notice. Everyone has different things they mention. And this kind of helps me figure out how best to work with you and kind of helps me figure out where your mind's at, what you're thinking, what sorts of modalities are you using. Some people might be using auditory. They go, oh, I could just hear the squeeze. I could hear the juice. I could hear all of that going on. In fact, I could even hear your footsteps as you were walking towards me to offer me the lemon. Other people might say, well, shoot, I could see the lemon. I could see all the little spots. I could see where the stem used to be. I could see the shape, the shade of yellow. I could see it all. And in fact, I could see the table. I've even had somebody describe to me, oh, yeah, I feel like I could be sitting at a table in a kitchen. And it was like a brown oak table. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't think you would notice the table, but you did. And I could definitely tell that you're a lot of those visual pieces. Other times people might be talking about the kinesthetic. They're like, oh, wow, when you handed me that lemon, I could feel like how cool the rind was. And I could feel like how spongy the rind was. And I could feel like the actual drips of lemon juice on my lips. Like I could feel that. And other people, and this is something I'll be looking for as well, oftentimes to see when I describe the lemon juice and how sour it is, how people's faces might contort like they do when they get something sour or they think of something sour. Or sometimes they might even say, hey, I could even feel myself, like I could feel myself salivating, or I could feel the lemon juice on my tongue and all what that feels like when I eat something sour. So all of this kind of helps me both show you that I can get you to experience something like seeing a lemon, hearing the squeeze of the lemon, or like tasting lemon juice simply by describing it, and showing that the power of your own mind to visualize, see, and experience a suggestion. Because this overall is kind of suggesting, see the lemon, feel the lemon, taste the lemon, taste the rainbow, Skittles, all these sorts of things, right? It's something where it helps me realize what sorts of modalities are you using, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, or what sort of things are you focusing on or fixating on. And certainly helps kind of show to you, oh, wow, yeah, there's a lot of different ways I can experience these sorts of scenarios or situations in my mind. So that is the lemon exercise. And it's a good one to really start exciting the imagination and showing what hypnosis is capable of. But let's talk about, we've talked about a lot of what might be leading up. Let's talk about some of the actual things that will happen during the hypnosis portion, because I mentioned before, we'll create an outline of what we're going to be doing. So when we actually get down to different hypnotherapy techniques, here's just a few examples of what we might work on or what we might do. So first and foremost, hypnotic suggestion and future visualization. This is what is going to be utilized most often. We're going to be coming up with different suggestions to give you that you will then be in the hypnotic state to accept uncritically and be able to help use to help get more acquainted with your mind and help basically move you towards more desired thought patterns. So utilizing suggestions in hypnotic state to create new pathways and understandings that drive you towards success and away from unwanted patterns or habits. So that's kind of what hypnotic suggestion is. Future visualization is all about trying to see yourself, right, as your best or future self when you have achieved that success, or seeing yourself making the better decision, or see yourself, at the end of your weight loss journey being nice and ripped and buff and or just in shape. Being able to visualize and see the end result, to see yourself differently, because some people might eventually visualize themselves as like, well, I can never see myself as fit or active, or I can never see myself not holding a cigarette when I take that break at work. Well, let's work on that. Let's visualize yourself succeeding. Let's visualize yourself accomplishing your goals. So imagining seeing yourself accomplishing your goals within the proper context of when they matter most. So that's something that can be done in almost any session, is say, let's look forward in time. Let's see ourselves you know, crushing that test. Let's see ourselves communicating and patching things up with my significant other. Let's see ourselves achieving that, that award for my presentation or for my research work. All these sorts of things that people sometimes just shoot themselves down and say, well, no, I'll never achieve that, or I'll never do that. I'm not confident enough. I could never achieve that. Well, why not? That's a lot of what hypnotherapy, especially future visualization and suggestion, could be. It's, well, why not? Why not you? Why not that case? Why can't you do that? What's holding you back? And a lot of time when you ask what is those concrete things that are holding somebody back from achieving their goal, sometimes they can't come up with things. It's literally just the idea they've had about themselves the whole time. So that's kind of what we're doing. This is the most common form of hypnotherapy, is suggestion and future visualization. Some other things we might do: anchoring mind states. So this is anchoring, sometimes called anchor and trigger. But what is anchoring a mind state? Well, first of all, we'd have to reach or develop a specific mind state while in trance. So that mind state might be, well, a state of calm, or a state of, feeling like you have a handle over a strong emotion, or like if you get really flustered easily or nervous easily, just finding a way to develop a state of mind or a visualization, or just a state that you're in where you're like, well, no, I am feeling confident in this moment, or no, I am feeling relaxed. I don't have those same nerves right now. We create that mindset. We create that mind state while we're in the hypnotic state, while we're in trance. And then what we do is we create or come up with a physical anchor and or a verbal trigger to return to it. So this is like an action or a phrase that you utilize to return to this beneficial state of mind when you need it. So in this example here, maybe we have somebody who's just like really nervous or anxious about public speaking, right? Maybe they have a big presentation coming up and they go, oh my gosh, I'm going to stutter. I can't do this. Like, I just know that I'm going to mess this up because that's what I always do. They're just in their own head, speaking about themselves in a way that's not productive. And you'll find that the way you talk or think about yourself or view yourself can be very important. So, in this example, maybe during trance, we brought about a state of calm, a state where you're calm, your thoughts are clear and concise, that nervousness is so far away, you're not anxious at all. In fact, you're even visualizing in this state, in this trance state that we're in, that you're in front of a big crowd, and you know that you're normally anxious during this, but for some reason you can see the crowd, you can see yourself at that podium, you can see yourself delivering that speech, and you're calm, you're concise, you're able to just have just a carefree state of mind, a focused state of mind on what you need to do. Well, let's try to anchor that state of mind. In this case, maybe they'd come up with, well, I like to interlace my fingers, and then I will think or say the word peace. And when I say that, oh, now I'm focused, I'm calm, and then they can bring that anchor outside of the hypnotic state and utilize it before they take the podium and give their speech. It's something that they can take to the conscious side of things. It's something that they can use, and this is kind of where you can utilize self-hypnosis or just have some tools to utilize on your own to benefit from hypnotherapy long after the session ends. In this case, anchoring that mind state of calm by just interlacing fingers and saying peace, or sometimes I even have an anchor myself, that if I just need to like get into a very like reflective or inward facing state, I can touch my thumbs together. And when I touch my thumbs together, that really helps me focus and stay still and be mindful. So, whatever ends up being that way, I think I've had other people as well make anchors out of like twisting a wedding ring, because that's something they already do. Sometimes it might be kind of giving yourself a hug or going into a havening position. Whatever it is, everyone has like individual or different anchors or mind states they want to achieve, but this can be a very powerful technique for using when it benefits you, when you need to utilize it to calm yourself down or to reach a flow state. If you're an athlete or somebody who needs to get into the zone quicker, you can anchor that as well. So that'll be another one. This next one is called parts facilitation. I did hint at this earlier. Sometimes you have some internal struggles, like some internal conflict that you need to solve. And this is where parts facilitation can be very, very helpful. And when I introduce this idea, sometimes it can be a little bit goofy to some. Like when I tell people, hey, yeah, we're going to personify different parts of your internal conflict, and you're going to have an internal discussion or an internal dialogue. And they look at you, go, wait, so I'm going to be talking with myself? And you go, yes. And you have to look them straight in the face and go, yes, you will be talking with yourself. But when you're in the hypnotic state, you can certainly take different perspectives. You can take different parts of this internal conflict and have them actually speak and feel like distinct parts of your mind. And you'd be surprised what a dialogue like that can do, what it can do to help you sort out a lot of your motivations, sort out a lot of what's actually happening to cause this internal conflict. And many people come out of parts facilitation feeling a lot more certain about what they want or why. So let's look at some examples here. Let's look at an example. Let's say somebody is being presented with accepting a new promotion. They've been given the offer for a new promotion and they're thinking, wow, I should be really happy, but something is just like not sitting right. Why am I beating myself up over this? Why haven't I accepted this promotion yet? And they go, all right, I think I need to figure this out. I need help figuring this out. And they book a session for hypnotherapy and they book a session with me. And I go, all right, it sounds like there's some internal conflict. I think we should try parts facilitation. Let's get you into the hypnotic state and let's identify the different parts that are kind of at war or at least arguing inside. And we go through and we start, right? And we identify one of these parts is your ambition. Maybe because like one thing we do with parts facilitation is we usually give the part a name and we give it a breakdown of what its job is, what it's trying to do. So in this case, ambition might be like, well, I'm trying to secure you a better career. I'm trying to make sure that we keep going up that corporate ladder. And maybe ambition, when we break this down, when we create this internal dialogue, ambition talks really confidently, a little bit louder, right? Well, we need to secure this corporate ladder. We need to make sure that we're always elevating in our career. I'm trying to get us more pay and more status. My job is to make sure that we are always doing our best. And that is ambition. And then we go, all right, thanks, ambition. You're here. You're here to talk. You're here to fight for, trying to reach the stars and trying to be our best. Well, who else is here? Who else is causing conflict? Well, maybe we have sentiment. A different part of us comes forward and it's sentiment. Maybe sentiment talks a little bit quieter. Maybe sentiment is a little bit more aware of others' feelings, is a little bit more empathetic. And sentiment goes, well, I really like my current routine and my coworkers. If I accept this new promotion, I'll be in a different department and I might not be able to see my coworkers and I'm gonna have to learn a whole new routine. And I've got such a good system going on right now. And sentiment might talk different than ambition. Ambition's going, no, 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 no. We have to do this. This is a good opportunity. We have to. And sentiment's going, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know if we can do this. I feel like we're leaving our team. And then maybe there's even a third part that you weren't even aware of. And maybe it's self-esteem. Self-esteem is sitting there and you're somehow, somewhere deep in your mind when you're thinking about it uncritically and you're being kind of challenged on why am I so bent out of shape about this new promotion? And it turns out there's that part of you, that self-esteem that's going, well, I just don't think we're good enough for it. I'm afraid that we're going to fail. Like they're going to give us this promotion, this new part, this new job, and we're just not going to do well and we're going to let everyone down. And it turns out that self-esteem is the crux. And now it turns out that ambition and sentiment start working or describing to self-esteem how, no, we are good enough. We've earned this. We deserve this. Sentiment might go, yeah, our coworkers love us. Look at the routine we've built. Look at what we've accomplished and done together. And I know that, if we do accept this promotion, we're not going to be losing those things that we've achieved and built with our current coworkers. We'll still be able to keep up with them, and all of a sudden it turns into almost a convincing session for yourself, right? Where you're trying to talk with these parts that are holding back. Or maybe in this case, it might work out that, yeah, maybe sentiment wins out. Maybe ambition needs to kind of reel back and say, hey, hey, I know I'm trying to get us up the corporate ladder, but this isn't the right move. However it ends up working out is however it ends up working out. And that's the beauty of parts facilitation. You never know where it's going to go or how you're going to end up pulling through that internal conflict. But that's the thing. I'll be guiding you. I'll be talking you through it. I will be a neutral, arbitrary party that's going to be talking you through this discussion. And like I said, I have to stare people in the face and go, yes, parts facilitation, what is it? It is a dialogue with yourself. You will be talking with yourself, but in the hypnotic state, it feels natural. You let things flow, and you'll be surprised what you discover about why that internal conflict exists. Other things, regression. I also hinted at this. So regression um, doesn't usually mean, it can mean going back as far as getting into the mind of like a childhood memory, but regression isn't need to go that far. It can, it certainly does very often, but regression is simply returning to a past memory or experience and then being able to see and understand that experience from a new perspective. So, past experiences, whether you know it or not, are very often things that kind of drive our behavior in the current day. Whether we understand why or how, a lot of what happened in the past, and usually what happened as when we were kids or developing, like those sorts of memories, and usually there can even be a relationship behind it that kind of drives these behaviors. They can affect the way we do that. And a lot of times, these past memories, these past things that we've kind of been affected by, kind of play on loop somewhere in the back of our head. And we don't realize how much it affects us until we start looking at it a little bit more, getting deep dive into it and go, why am I feeling this way? Why do I respond to these types of situations? And once we kind of have this older, more mature mindset to look at a past event, or once we have insight, or hindsight's 2020, once we have that hindsight, once we have a better understanding, we can then look back and just try to find a resolution to these past memories, right? Acceptance, forgiveness, trying to drive positive change from saying, okay, this is how it was back then, this is how it went down back then, but this isn't how it needs to be going forward, right? You kind of go back and you kind of heal that memory a little bit more. Try to find forgiveness of the transgressor, of who was the person who kind of caused that memory to be a sensitizing event that affects you later on. So regression can be very helpful, and it can be as simple as moving back to a couple weeks ago to why you made a specific decision, or why you hurt somebody, or why someone hurt you, and how it's affecting you now. And it can be as far back as, wow, way back when I was 5 years old, I had this event happen that I think is now making me really nervous when it comes to um, driving. Like, I just have this barrier, like I can't drive now, and it's like, oh wow, it's because way back when there was this incident that just now makes me really nervous around driving. And if you go back and you look at that and say, hey, this was one event, this happened because of these reasons. I don't have to fear that all of these things are going to happen to me now. I can now look at things from a rational perspective, or from a more mature perspective, and tell past me, or tell that loop recorder going but somewhere in the back of my subconscious mind, hey, it's okay. We can do this. It's not going to play out that exact same way. I know you're worried about it. I know this is something that has been on our mind a lot, but we can get through it. So regression can be very powerful, and regression is something that usually takes a few sessions, both to kind of get the context around the issue, and then to really deep dive into the memory, to back to the experience, and to really give it time to sort out, to actually play out, to kind of get into a point where you can make more sense about the who, the what, the where, and the why. But regression, very, very, very powerful modality. It can be very helpful for people who are trying to deal with strong emotions or past sensitizing events. Other things, hypnotherapy can be used for creative endeavors, right? The hypnotic state, as I mentioned before, is compared to the brain activity that happens during REM sleep when dreams occur. So it can be very good to exercise these parts of the brain, right? I feel like my dreams got much more vivid when I started practicing hypnosis. I feel like my language and my creativity around language has grown quite a bit since then. That might also have to do with the fact that I'm a practicing hypnotist. But beside the point, exercising these parts of the brain can often spark vivid visualizations, vivid descriptors, or experiences around sounds, sights, smells, sometimes just other sorts of like touch or kinesthetic things. So it can really help improve your creativity. And this is where things like dream exploration or mindscape exploration can be really, really helpful. I, even for a long time, was working with an artist, and an artist who originally their entire goal was, I don't know a lot about how my mind works. I want to know myself better. Their whole simple goal was to understand myself better. And it ended up being a really fun set of sessions of just mindscape exploration. And the mindscape they were able to describe and build, and the reasons why these things were in their mind, and how they tended and cared and came up with routines for how to care for their mind, care for their thoughts, care for how they end up positioning these things. It was incredible. It was an incredible experience. And I know that they found a lot of benefit from that. They found ways of kind of getting their thoughts and their mind in order, and they're able to build a lot more of their goals and their wants and their desires off of that. And I know they're still practicing very diligently with their art, and they create incredible art. So it's something that I know is very fun to do for just exploring creative endeavors. But yeah, that's some examples there about what sorts of modalities we might use. Again, we have things like hypnotic suggestion and visualization, anchoring of mind states, parts facilitation, regression, and of course, other sorts of creative endeavors, and just trying to flex those parts of the mind. All right. Well, one thing I want to mention too is hypnosis and hypnotherapy are extremely accessible. If you've been thinking this whole time, well, shoot, maybe I get kind of nervous going into an office or going somewhere I don't know, or how accessible is this? Like, how can I actually get to it? This is where I think hypnotherapy is one of the more accessible things. Similar to telehealth, video conferencing is mainly what I do as a hypnotherapist. In fact, at the moment, I'm seeing pretty much all of my clients over video conferencing. So it's somewhere where if you just have like a computer with a webcam and a microphone, that's all you need. You don't need to be in person. I don't need to be right in front of you to do hypnosis. No, if you can hear what I'm saying and follow along, that's enough. And having that face-to-face webcam also just helps with realizing, hey, this is another person on the end of the line. We're going to be working together. And it helps me kind of get to know you and you to know me a lot better. So video conferencing, but let's say, hey, I don't have a computer and I don't have a webcam or a microphone. Well, cool, we can do phone conferencing too. If you have a smartphone, chances are that smartphone both has a front-facing camera and a built-in microphone. And I've done plenty of sessions with people just on their smartphones. And yeah, again, they usually don't need to even like watch or see me as much to get the benefits. But it does help with getting to know each other and having a fluid conversation. So you can use your phone. And if all else fails, audio only is perfectly fine. Again, if you can hear my voice, you can benefit from hypnotherapy. So audio sessions over a phone call or sometimes even pre-recorded sessions. I've even been asked sometimes to pre-record a hypnotic suggestion or like a set of hypnotic suggestions, and I've provided that sort of pre-recording to somebody for them to listen on their own time, and if they were either too busy to schedule a session or too nervous to do an in-person session, pre-recordings are also a very, very effective way, especially if it's a customized one, because there's plenty of pre-recorded hypnosis sessions or hypnotherapy sessions that you can find online. But a lot of the time, it's hard to build trust with somebody that you don't know, and sometimes it's not custom tailored to be very much applicable to your own issue or the own thing that you want to work on. So a pre-recorded session is very much can be effective. It's very helpful if it's done custom, which is something I'd be more than happy to do as well. And what I've found and what some studies have found is that hypnotherapy is just as effective remotely as in person. I think some people go, oh, well, it's not going to be as effective if I'm not face to face. And really, you can reach the outcomes and benefits from the comfort of your own home. It's the accessibility is always there, just like telehealth, just like it is in healthcare, other healthcare you've come to expect. Hypnotherapy can be extremely effective and extremely accessible through these types of video conferencing and on audio mediums. And I found that clients usually do the best when they're comfortable. Comfort and trust are huge when it comes to hypnotherapy. And how much more comfortable you can get than being in your own home, on your bed or on your favorite couch or chair, and just kind of listening and following and benefiting from hypnotherapy in a place that you feel the most comfortable. So, but yeah, it's accessible as ever. And it's something that I can highly, highly recommend as somebody who's done it myself to really help with my goals and aligning with trying to get over certain insecurities, self-confidence, and self-esteem issues. So, yeah, success. Speaking of success, right? I've had plenty of success with clients. I've had success myself with hypnotherapy, especially when it came to self-esteem and confidence. But let's talk about the success of hypnotherapy. You're probably thinking, "Wow, this is really fantastical. How does this work?" And what sort of metrics do we have? And you can see down there, I got a few of those references onto peer-reviewed studies. And here are some of the things that can be pulled from those studies that can be shown. One meta-analysis found that as many as 1 in 18 people will utilize hypnotherapy sometime in their lifetime. And this was taken from, I believe, a study of English-speaking countries or countries where English is the first language. But yeah, it was shown that way more than you'd expect. I think it was around 6% of people had utilized hypnotherapy in some way. And if that was seeing a professional or if that was just utilizing any sort of hypnosis or hypnotherapy recorded files, it was shown that, yeah, up to 1 in 18 people had reported that they had utilized hypnotherapy. So it's more than you think, and like I said, it's not for everybody. Many people won't rub shoulders with it, and that's why I like to do this introduction, is because some people just need more information to realize what it is and what it can do. Also, as high as 90% success rate for smoking cessation. They have found that there's a reason one of the tropes or one of the things that people think about when they think of hypnotherapy is quitting smoking, is because it has been found to be very, very, very effective. I think one study showed, even as effective as like 15 times more effective on staving off smoking and staying quitting smoking than just trying to do it without any sort of help, just trying to quit um, without any sorts of help. I mean, it was even, I think, shown sometimes to be more effective than nicotine alternatives like patches. I think they found that as well. So a lot of what smoking cessation can be done, you can try to create a subconscious aversion to the smell of smoke. You can get a subconscious change of needing sort of that oral fixation. You can start having somebody focus less on the secondary benefits of the nicotine or secondary benefits of getting a break at work and focus more on the drives, the motivations. Like, I want to quit for my family. I want to quit so that I'm going to be around longer. I want to quit so that I'm healthier, that I can get back into exercise, that I can breathe easier. You get somebody to really focus more on those, get that selective attention on the benefits versus trying to think more about the things that are currently like those secondary benefits or things that aren't as important. Yeah, another one, hypnosis has been shown to increase the efficacy of weight loss results in 9 out of 10 cases when combined with cognitive behavioral therapy. So, this was a study actually where they had kind of used the same cognitive behavioral therapies for people who wanted to lose weight. And what they found is the people who utilize hypnosis or hypnotherapy in conjunction with these cognitive behavioral therapies ended up losing more weight than 90% of the other participants. So there was a 10% that was able to achieve um, good results or great results without the hypnotherapy, but a majority of the ones who found the success on keeping on losing the weight and keeping the weight off were those that used hypnotherapy in conjunction. Because I like to describe it as it's a mental tailwind. It's aligning that subconscious mind to let you kind of make these decisions, to build these patterns and these habits, these routines without having to consciously think about it nearly as much. So you're making a lot more decisions and not falling into similar old patterns or destructive patterns, like reaching for the fridge when you're feeling down, or snacking mindlessly without realizing that you just went through a whole bag of potato chips. It's those sorts of things. Hypnosis has been shown to raise self-esteem and confidence while lowering impulsivity. So it basically shows that it can help change how you view yourself, right? It can still change how you view yourself. I believe this was a study around drug and alcohol rehabilitation. And a lot of people are just able to see themselves as somebody who's not as much dependent on these things, or see themselves as somebody who can be confident without alcohol. Like, they don't need it to be having a good time at a party or need it to kind of cope with other sorts of stressors that are in their life. And that also lowered the impulsivity. They could see themselves as somebody who wasn't going to kind of fall back into that same pattern or need these same crutches or vices. It really kind of helps stave off the need or the desire to kind of go back to these things. And then the efficacy is shown for chronic pain management with fibromyalgia patients. So this is something that I like to say. Not a lot of people think about hypnotherapy when it comes to chronic pain management, but when it comes down to it, a lot of these chronic pains that we have that are just completely centered around the nervous system can actually be dialed up or down or tweaked or even blocked or ignored by the mind. And simply using hypnotherapy to utilizing hypnotherapy to help manage chronic pain can be extremely effective without the use of drugs or other sorts of things. And obviously, this does come with, and I will give the disclaimer that you do need, right, usually a physician referral for anything that is going to be dealing with, a diagnosed condition or something where a predicated prescription from a medical professional already exists, right? I, as a hypnotherapist, can't go against something that was already prescribed for a diagnosed condition. But in times where a doctor might go, hey, this is fibromyalgia, either you're going to have to go on drugs to handle the pain or find a different way to cope with the pain or deal with the pain. and they go, hey, wait, what about hypnotherapy? The doctor, more likely than not, is going to go, yeah, no, there's nothing that you can really do to cause additional damage to this thing. If your mind can find a way to ignore it, filter it out, block those pain signals, that can be an excellent way to do it homeopathically without needing any sorts of drug intervention. So, in situations where pain is there and there's not much a doctor can do about it, uh, hypnotherapy can very much help to improve quality of life and get that pain managed to a way that is a lot more easy day to day. So that is something that people don't think about. I've even had somebody who was basically saying that, yeah, like sometimes, especially, it was an OBGYN who was basically saying, like, sometimes there's times where um, either I think it is both like pre and post pregnancy that there can be some certain pains that just really can't be helped. Like there's no real intervention to them. They're just kind of pains or other things that kind of happen that really there's no good way around it. It's just going to happen, and if there is a way that you can utilize hypnotherapy, it can certainly be used to help kind of curb those types of pain signals that are otherwise unavoidable or are just and otherwise just like not able to be helped or pinpointed. The biggest thing with pain management is you just don't want to have somebody ignore pain that is going to cause more damage. Like if somebody's having pain on their foot because there's an actual fracture or something there, right? You don't want them to ignore that because if they keep using it like normal, it will cause more damage. But in situations where somebody's pain or chronic pain is something that really can't be helped, look into hypnotherapy. It can definitely help you manage and cope with long-term pain. But with that, yes, thank you so much. This is the end of the introduction to hypnotherapy. I hope you learned something. I hope you were able to kind of pick up some things that you didn't know about hypnotherapy or help overturn some things that you once thought about hypnotherapy. And of course, hypnotherapy isn't, as I mentioned before, isn't right for everybody, but there's a lot that you can do. And it's all about taking back that conscious control. It's all about really just creating those successful mindsets. It's changing the way you think and the way you see yourself to affect positive change. And it really is something that is collaborative, something that, clients, when they come to me, are here for a reason. They want to change, they want to create new mindsets, they want to create new patterns, they want to get past old behaviors or old things that are holding them back. And that, if you take anything from this, it's that hypnotherapy is collaborative, it's goal driven, and it's going to be up to you to really benefit from it, to take the suggestion, to actually work in conjunction, be an active, informed participant, and to be able to do it for your own benefit. You have to be here, you have to show up motivated, you have to want to change. And if you come with that attitude, you come with an open mind, I promise you that hypnotherapy will be a benefit to you. And yeah, if you remember nothing else, just remember that. So, well, thank you so much. Hopefully, you learned something. I'll also be posting these slides on my channel, or at least a link to them on my channel. So, hopefully, you can review those at your own leisure. And yeah, use this as a reference anytime that you are thinking about utilizing hypnotherapy for whatever goal or issue you're trying to get over. So, all right. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Kelvin Hedberg, certified hypnotherapist, and this has been Hedberg Hypnotherapy, an introduction to hypnotherapy. Have a great rest of your day.